I want to thank Steve for that introduction. I want to thank HBCU Legacy Bowl, Black College Football Hall of Fame, all the sponsors and organizers for having me here. It's a little different talking in front of people than it is talking in front of a teleprompter and a camera and everything. And so, I'll tell you guys a story. Hopefully, no judgment here. I'll tell you guys a story. It's an embarrassing story. And it's about, just being careful when you're speaking in public. It's the reason why I get a little nervous when I speak. One time, I was in Norfolk, Virginia, where I was working, and I was one of the speakers on this program, and another speaker who I won't name was also there, and I was introducing her. She was a really well-known journalist, and she had won a series of really prestigious awards for a series that she had done where she went undercover to cover life on the streets for prostitutes and pimps and johns, everything. It was a really, really good series that really captured the essence of what was happening out there. And so I was introducing her, but I was so nervous about what I was going to say that I was kind of half listening. And I didn't really get everything together. So I get ready to introduce her when she's getting ready to come on and speak. And I said, this woman has won all these awards, and she's a great journalist, and you probably recognize her from TV. And I won't use her name here because of what I said. I said, but, things weren't always so rosy in her life. At one point in her life, she was a prostitute. And so she's looking at me, and I'm like, well, why is she looking at me like, was I not supposed to say that? You know what I mean? And so she comes up to give her presentation, and she's like, I want to thank Stan for that wonderful introduction, but I need to clear up one thing. I did an undercover series on prostitution. I was never actually a prostitute. And it was like one of those Southwest Airlines moments where like, ding, want to get away? Because all the kids, these are junior high school kids, and they're all looking at me like, you called her a prostitute. So just that's a part of the reason why you want to always pay attention when you're getting ready to speak. My family's history with HBCUs goes back a long way to my great uncle who went to Kentucky State. Anybody Kentucky State here? All right, my man. My mother graduated from McDonough 35 High School. Any New Orleanians here? McDonough 35, anybody? Okay, so my mother went to McDonough 35, which is a public school here. It's a black magnet school, the oldest black public school in New Orleans. She was the valedictorian. She never got a B, but things were still segregated in the South. And so she couldn't go to LSU or Tulane or Louisiana Tech or anywhere like that. So she went to Dillard University, which is an HBCU, small HBCU here in New Orleans. And she never got a B there. Graduated valedictorian of her class at Dillard. So she wanted to go to graduate school, but it was still segregated here. And so she went to live with my uncle in New York, went to NYU, got a master's degree. Came back home, was teaching at George Washington Carver High School here in New Orleans. And she wanted to go and continue her education, get a PhD, but it was still segregated. And so along with her best friend, who was also a few years later on the faculty at Dillard University, where my mom went back to teach because that was a school that gave her a chance, they filed a lawsuit to integrate Tulane's graduate school here in New Orleans. And my mom's best friend was in that first class at Tulane's graduate school, and she's the first black woman to get a PhD from Tulane, and my mom was the second. My mom deferred and went the next year. But it was the foundation that she got at Dillard that set her on the road to everything that she's achieved in her life. She was an insect physiologist, believe it or not, and she was, during her career, she's retired now, she was a national expert on roaches, believe it or not. And the foundation that she got, she fell in love with the sciences at Dillard, and that set her on her career path. And that's the story of HBCUs, where it's all about opportunity and giving students opportunities where they may have been denied at other places. I'm sure some of you guys are, as Shanika said, first-generation college students. Some of you may not come from the wealthiest families. Some of you may not have had the the metrics that people look to when they look at athletes and say, okay, they have to be this height, this weight, and so you don't get the opportunity. But then HBCUs are there for you to get that opportunity, to grow and to develop and to be the best version of yourselves that you can be. And oftentimes, that's really all you need to do that is an opportunity. And that's what HBCUs have always provided for young black people in this country. My own HBCU story sort of flowed out of my mom's story. I went to St. Augustine High School here in New Orleans. Any St. Aug grads in the house? Any Purple Knights? All right, we got a Purple Knight here. I did pretty well in high school, and academically, I could have gone anywhere in the country. So there was a school. I played football at St. Aug, not very well, not like any of you guys. Nobody was interested in me in college. I was too small, made up for it by being too slow. So I didn't get the opportunity to play football in college. But when I was searching for schools, I kept getting letters from this one school in Washington, D.C. And I won't say what school it is, and you'll understand why when I finish the story. But they were sending me letters every day because they were starting a journalism program, and they really wanted talented minority students, which I thought was great. So I said, hey, I want to go visit this school. And my mom, being the Dillard graduate that she was, said, okay, we'll go and visit, but while we're there, let's go check out Howard. Anybody from Howard here? All right, HU? All right, oh, I see the shirt, all right. So have you ever been to Howard, and you guys been to Howard's homecoming or ever been on the yard at Howard? It's really something, it's special. It was a nice spring day, and my mom set up the visit to Howard before the visit to the other school. So I get on Howard's campus, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, man, these kids are cool. I mean, maybe if I come here, I could be this cool one day. And then they showed me WHUR, which is the campus radio station that Howard owns. They showed me WHMM at the time, which is now WHUT, the campus television station that is actually the PBS affiliate for Washington, D.C. And I said, students get to work with all this? And they're like, yeah, if you have the talent, if you have the skills, you have the desire, yeah, you get to work with all of this. And I'm like, wow, I want to come here. So my visit to that other school was scheduled for the next day. I canceled the visit. I said, I'm coming to Howard because something I'm sure all of you can relate to, I instantly felt at home on that campus. I grew up on Dillard's campus here when my mom was teaching there every day after school. And, I would catch the bus from St. Aug and go to Dillard, do my homework, and just kind of hang out, trying to be around the college kids while my mom was at work. And that became my idea of what college was. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be like those students. And Howard was that when I went to visit. And so I was instantly just in love with the campus and the experience and everything. And it turned out to be the best decision I could have made, I believe, for my life. So then my younger brother was 4 years behind me. He would see, just when I was at home, just the effect that Howard had on me, and he was like, I want some of that. And so he followed me to Howard 4 years later. My older brother is also a Dillard grad, but he was there while my mom was teaching there. And so he told me, you don't want to do that. You don't want to go here where mom's teaching here, because, how come you weren't in biology class this morning? How do you know I wasn't in biology class? Because everybody told her. So that's why I wound up going to Howard because of that visit. And while I was there, it was just such an incredible experience. I'm sure some of you can relate to some of the things I'll share with you. The biggest thing that I felt after I got into my actual academic program was the sense of nurturing and investment and care that my professors took in me. I did very well my freshman year, and by my sophomore year, the chairman of the journalism department, Dr. Lawrence Kagwa, had me on, he had a legal pad just like this one. And he would go around and he would talk to the different professors and he would find out who are the students who we have who are showing some promise. And he would write their names on that legal pad. I'm sure Steve was on that legal pad at some point. And then he would call you in. And he called me in and he was from Nigeria. He was like, Mr. Verrett, what are your plans? All right? And so you had to tell him what you saw for your career, how you wanted things to play out. And so that did one thing for me, made me start to think about it. But he also had contacts all over Washington, D.C. That could provide opportunities for me. Now, I don't know if I'm at a non-HBCU, first of all, if I get on that list, and secondly, if there even is a list. But I was on that list, Dr. Kagwa, and he said, I have an opportunity for you at the Washington Post if you want it. And so now here I am, my sophomore year at Howard, and I've got a job at the Washington Post. And not an internship, but a job where I was actually getting a check, in addition to meeting all these fabulous people. I met Michael Wilbon and Tony Kornheiser back then, used to sort their mail at the Washington Post. And again, all of it a byproduct of being at Howard. I went a little further into my junior year, and I actually started taking broadcast journalism classes. I knew that I wanted to be in television. I've always known I wanted to do exactly what I'm doing now. And so we had two professors at Howard who were just unbelievable. Luther Brown was a producer for NBC. He was one of the producers on Tom Brokaw's nightly newscast. And we had to take his class at night because he was actually out in the field producing for NBC every day. So we're getting someone who is actually coming from actually doing what we want to do, who then comes to Howard to teach us. It was just a magnificent experience. Our other broadcast journalism teacher was Lee Thornton, who had worked at CNN, CBS, and NPR. She was the first black woman to cover the White House. And she had a mission to train the next generation of black journalists. And she did a fantastic job. There are several of us who came through her class who are on network television. Steve, myself, you guys know Gus Johnson from Fox Sports. He was a year behind me and Steve. Frederica Whitfield from CNN was also a couple of years ahead of us. Stephanie Elam from CNN was maybe 10 years behind us. And there's dozens of local journalists who can trace their success in their careers to Dr. Thornton's class at Howard University. That's where the seed was planted. Now, you guys are probably familiar with this aspect of the story too. We didn't have the best resources. We didn't have a teleprompter. We didn't really have cameras. We had WHMM, which became a part of the story later, but in our broadcast journalism class, we basically pretended that we were on television. It wasn't an actual television setting. We wrote our scripts, and we basically had to ad-lib because we didn't have teleprompters to read and do that sort of thing. But in 1989, Dr. Thornton and some of the other folks at the university secured a grant from Westinghouse to get us a student-produced newscast that would play on WHMM, the PBS affiliate. And my last semester at Howard, we worked on that show pretty much the whole semester. And myself, along with Michelle Miller, who's now on CBS, CBS Morning News on weekends, we were the first anchors of that show. Again, another opportunity that I don't know that I have if I didn't go to Howard University. I've talked to colleagues, professional colleagues now who work in the business, who are at the network level, who went to non-HBCUs, and I asked them about their college experience, and they say, yeah, it was cool. And some of the schools that they went to had student-produced newscasts, and I asked them, what was your role in it? Well, I got to do some stories and everything. I said, well, did you get to anchor? No, we didn't get to anchor. No, we didn't get to anchor. And the connotation was, that was for the white students. They were, in general, they were chosen as the anchors. And so that wasn't gonna happen at Howard. So again, it's just one of those things where there were opportunities there for me at Howard that may not have been there at other places. So now that brings me to the next part of what I want to talk to you about today is that when I actually got out into the world and began my professional career, I can tell you guys some stories of things that I encountered, experiences that I had that I think have lessons in it that could serve you as you embark on your professional careers, whether that's in athletics or anything else that you may aspire to do. I graduated with a tape, an actual resume tape from anchoring that show at Howard that I could present to prospective employers. And I supplemented that with a story that I did, ironically enough, on ESPN. This was back in 1991, I believe it was. And the story was for a show called Black College Sports Today. There used to be a syndicated show that just covered HBCU sports. And it was on ESPN. You used to come on in the afternoon once a week. It was called Black College Sports Today, and they had reporters all around. And they were looking for somebody to do a story on the lack of black coaches in college football. And so I went to South Carolina State. Anybody from South Carolina State here? No? Okay. So I was working in Charleston at the time. I went to South Carolina State and interviewed some of the coaches there, and they were really the backbone of the story. Willie Jeffries was one of the coaches there. And that story ran on the show. And that was the first thing I ever did on real television. But I had to hustle to get that done because they just said, hey, can you do the story? I said, yeah, I can do the story. And then I had to figure out how I could do the story. So the message in this story is about assigning yourself, figuring it out yourself, seeing an opportunity, and then taking advantage of it, seizing it, making the most of it. So I had to find a photographer because I didn't work at a TV station. I was working at a radio station. So I had to find a photographer. So I called some people I knew, got a photographer. Black College Sports Today was going to pay me $300 for the story. And the photographer told me, I'll charge you $250 to shoot it and edit it. So I'm going to make a grand total of $50 out of this whole operation here. But it was an opportunity to get something on tape to say, hey, here's what I can do. This actually aired on a nationally syndicated television show. So when these opportunities present themselves, and you will recognize them as you go along in your careers, when these opportunities present themselves, you have to seize them. And you have to find a way to get it done if it's something that will help you in the long run. Now, obviously, I didn't make any money on that. $50 is not a lot of money, but it wasn't really about the money. And I think you all will find, especially early in your careers, there will be opportunities that will come your way that may not be financially the best decisions, but they may be the best decisions in the long run. So you have to be able to size up those opportunities and figure out, should I think about the money here, or should I think about the long-term prospects that this could provide me? So I was in radio when I did that story and trying to get into television, which brings me to the next thing that I think you should keep in mind. Try to decide what you want, how you want your career to develop, where you want it to end up as soon as you get started. Try to plot it out, at least in your mind. Because here's the thing, it may not turn out that way. You may have twists and turns. You may decide to do something totally different. But at least you'll have a working plan of how you would like things to go. Something better shows up, you can always move off of that plan and go somewhere else. But you need to have some sort of a plan of where you want things to wind up. As I told you before, I always knew I not only wanted to work at ESPN, I wanted to do the late night Sports Center because that was the show I watched that night. And I said, I want to do that one day. And I've been doing it now for 22 years. So figure out where you'd like it to end. In 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind and then work backwards from there. So come up with a plan. In 1992, on October 7th, at 3:20 a.m. and 21 seconds, I wrote down in a notebook what I wanted to happen in my career, very specifically about what I wanted to do, how much money I wanted to make, and why I felt like I deserved that and what I was willing to do to get there. I'm not going to tell you the dollar amount, but I'll just say like 21 Savage, it was a lot. And I got there. And I don't say that to boast. I say that to underscore the fact that I don't understand what the power is in writing down your goals. I can't tell you what the magic is in that, but I can tell you it's real. And I don't know if it's like if you make a handshake deal with somebody, you got a handshake deal with them. And if they flake, you're like, well, it was kind of a handshake deal. But if you have a contract with somebody, then that's binding. Everybody has to live up to whatever's in that contract. Writing down your goals is like a contract with yourself about the agreements that you're going to keep with yourself. And I don't know why it works. I can just tell you it does. So when you're formulating this plan, commit it to writing, because you can always refer back to it. Say, okay, where am I on this plan? And what do I need to do to keep executing this plan? So I left Charleston and I went to Norfolk. Anybody in Norfolk State, Hampton? Elizabeth City State? Oh, okay, all right. Some other guys practicing? Okay, all right. So I'm working in Norfolk in radio, and then I start to make my move into TV. And I made that move because I was at a party. One of the leading TV anchors in Norfolk used to have these great parties. She had a great house in Virginia Beach, and she would always host people at her parties. So I went to the party, and she says, Stan, you ever thought about doing TV? And I'm like, boom, there it is. You know, when I talk about recognizing those opportunities, I'm like, here's somebody who is the #1 anchor in this market, and she's asking me. I said, yeah, you know, and so she said, news or sports? I said, sports. She said, okay, I'm going to have somebody call you. So I thought it would be somebody from her station. She was at Channel 3, the CBS affiliate. But it was actually a guy who was at Channel 10, the NBC affiliate. So he calls me, says, so Barbara tells me you want to be a sports anchor. I said, yeah. He said, now you're not in college, so you can't really do an internship. And you don't really have any skills, so we can't really pay you, so I don't really know how this could work. I said, I'll tell you what, if you just let me come to the station and just hang out and learn, that's cool with me. I just want to learn. And so we made an agreement. So this was August or September, can't remember exactly when it was. But I started going out Wednesday through Sunday. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, I would go out with the sports reporter and just kind of watch how he worked. And I'd go back to the station. I would watch the editors edit the stories, watch them put it all together. Then I would stay until the late news went off. Now, I had a radio show to do in the morning. I was on 6 to 10 a.m. in the morning on a hip-hop and R&B station where I was a DJ. And so that's how that whole fall went, where I was at the TV station till 11:30 every night and then up at 4:30 in the morning to get to the radio station. So about, I'd say, a couple of months into it, the guy who had been the #3 sportscaster there decided he was going to leave to go take a job in Washington, D.C., so there was going to be an opening coming up at this station. And so Bruce Rader, who was the sports director who had given me this opportunity, he says, listen, this could be an opportunity for you, but you need to start working on it. So what I'm going to do is every Saturday, after the 6 o'clock news goes off, I'm going to ask the crew to stay, and at 6:35 to 6:40, you do your sportscast and put it on tape, practice tape. He said, now, this is their dinner break, and they're staying to help you because I asked them to do it. If you're not in that seat ready to go at 6:35, they're putting bars and tone. You ever see the color bars when there's nothing on TV? They're putting color bars and a tone on that tape, and that's going to be your tape. So you need to be ready to go. So I'm like, fine, here's another opportunity I need to seize. So I'm there every Saturday making these tapes and then still working through the week. So about mid-December, he says, listen, Christmas is coming up, and the weekend guy is going on vacation, and Bruce was a sports director and worked during the week. He said, and I'm not coming in to work, so here's your opportunity, but you got to get ready. So the last week before Christmas, I do my tape, take it into the news director who has the final call on this, and he says, I think you need one more week. So I come in that Wednesday, and Bruce says, hey, what did the news director say? I said, well, he said, I need one more week. He said, hold on, I'll be right back. Goes in, talks to the news director, comes back in, he says, you're going to be on Saturday. Be ready. So I just got a pit in my stomach. Where I'm like, okay, this is real. This is happening. I'm going live on TV on Saturday night. So through most of my academic career, I was a good student. I was a B student. Nothing wrong with B's, right? Nothing wrong with B's. I mean, who's going to argue with a B? You got a B. B's a C, B's a D. It's a B. It's good. It's good enough. But my mother used to always tell me, B's are good enough for people who have B ability. But I believe you have A ability. And so these B's aren't good enough. But I just kept making B's. I wanted to have a good time. I wanted to have fun, hang out with my friends. I wanted to play football. I wanted to do all these things. I made a B. B's are good enough. And I always knew she was right. And when I graduated from Howard, I graduated with a 3.14 GPA. If I had graduated with a 3.2, I would have graduated with honors, which was really something that was important to me. And I thought about all those times when, if I had just studied a little harder, if I had just put in a little bit more work, I could have graduated with honors. And I came that close just as a reminder that you didn't get it done. And you didn't get it done because you were satisfied doing just enough. So I said, you know what? This is not going to be like that. This is going to be different. So that Friday, December 23rd, 1994, I was sick, didn't feel like going into the station. There was no reason really for me to go in on this quote-unquote internship that I was doing because I had already, as you guys say, secured the bag, right? I was going to be on that weekend. It was also Christmas, and I was going to visit my family who were in New Jersey at my brother's house. I hadn't done any Christmas shopping, and I knew I would have to do all that. And I was leaving right after the show on Sunday, and I was just all sorts of reasons for me not to go in that Friday. But I said, you know what? I'm going in. I'm going to finish this. I started it. I'm going to be fit, and I'm going to finish it. Any of you guys ran track? I'm going to be sprinting at the tape. I'm going to see this race all the way through. And so I went in that night and did the stuff I normally do, helped out with editing and everything, you know. But at 11:30 that night, when I had secured that opportunity for my first job in television through this informal internship that I had done, I was more proud of myself than I've ever been. I've interviewed former President Barack Obama for an hour-long special. I've covered Super Bowls, NBA Finals. That's still the most proud I've ever been of myself because I started something and I finished it all the way through. So when opportunities present themselves, do your best. We all know when we've done our best. You can lie to other people, but you can't lie to yourself. Do your best. I remember a story about the 1985 Chicago Bears. Somebody from Chicago? Somebody clapping? All right. So 1985 Chicago Bears. Richard Dent, by the way, Tennessee State, HBCU. Any Tennessee State grads? Any Tennessee State students? So 85 Bears played in the Super Bowl here in New Orleans at the Superdome. They played the New England Patriots. And the guys on the defense, that 85 Bears defense was one of the most dominant defenses in NFL history. If you go on YouTube and check them out, you'll see it's unbelievable. But they had a team meeting the night before the game. And Buddy Ryan was their defense coordinator. That's Rex Ryan and Rob Ryan's dad, who was prolific defense coordinator. He was their defense coordinator. And they had a team meeting. He was leaving to go coach the Eagles. That was his last game as their defense coordinator. And one of the guys on the defense, I can't remember if it was Wilbur Marshall or Mike Singletary, he said when they got done with that meeting, he was so sure about their game plan and so sure about the commitment of every guy in that room that he started feeling sorry for the Patriots because he knew what was going to happen the next day. And then one of the guys got up, and he got so fired up, he picked up a chair, and he threw it across the room, and he threw it so hard, the leg stuck in the wall. And he said, then I really felt sorry for him. Years later, I played in a golf tournament with Steve Grogan, who was the quarterback for the Patriots in that game. And he told me their defense was on them so quickly and so ferociously that he got to the huddle and said, guys, let's just get the ball snapped, because that defense was on them that way. That's the way you have to prepare. That's the way you prepare, so that you're so confident when you're going into a situation that's meaningful in your career, in your life. You prepare that way that you can go in with that kind of confidence. And that kind of confidence comes from putting in the work. One of the things that we have to deal with in media, if you're going to do this job, is rejection. Steve, how many times you get turned down for jobs? Yeah, it comes with the job. You send out resume tapes. It's sort of like being recruited. You send out your tape all over the country, different stations. Some of them are interested. Most of them aren't. Some of them you get an interview, don't get the job. Rejection is just a part of it. And it's going to be like that for some of you guys as well. But it's not about that rejection. It's how you respond to it. You don't have any control over whether or not you get rejected. You have 100% control over how you respond to that. Don't allow yourself to get down. Don't stop believing in yourself. Don't stop putting in the work. Perseverance fixes a lot of problems. Fixes a lot of problems. So make perseverance a part of who you are, because it'll serve you, not just in your careers, but also in your life. The other thing is, whatever it is that you choose to do, and those of you who are athletes here, and those of you who aren't, you'll understand this. No matter what it is that you choose to do in your career, in your life, there's a process involved. And you can become proficient at whatever it is that you do if you learn that process. Now, you may see, like, for instance, you guys, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen SportsCenter, and you see the show and you say, okay, wow, that's a slick production and everything. But there's a process that we go through every day to get that show done. So usually we would have a live meeting at 5 o'clock, everybody in a conference room. Hey, what's going on tonight? Which games? What are the big stories? What reporters do we have covering whatever it is that we're covering? How do we want to treat this story? How do we want to treat that story? And just kind of get a feel for what the night's going to look like on the show. Then the anchors go off and we start watching games and writing the show. The producer puts in what's called a rundown of all the stories that we're going to do in that particular show and how they're going to line up. So the most important games go up top, the biggest news goes up top, and then you just kind of proceed through the rest of the hour like that. And so we look at the rundown, me and Neil Everett or Ashley Brewer or whoever I may happen to be anchoring with that night. We get assigned particular stories, particular games. And so if I know I have the Cavaliers and the Lakers, then I'm going to spend some time watching that game. If I know I have a story on Brian Flores' lawsuit, then I have to do some reading on that to make sure that my presentation is on point with that story. So that's the process we go through every night. And everybody has their job. So the editors are cutting the video. The highlight producers are watching the games and putting their highlights together. The highlight supervisors are looking at those highlights and making sure they're what they're supposed to be. The producers are telling the highlight supervisors how much time each highlight gets. The news editors are making sure that we're factually on point with all the news items that are in the show. There's a whole process. And the whole show comes together by everybody doing their job within that process. Everything works that way. And so if you're looking to become proficient at anything, You learn the process. It's just like if you're a defensive tackle and you learn a swim move, a rip move, a bull rush. Somebody watching a football game may just see, oh, these guys are just crashing into each other. They don't see the technique involved that comes from the process. The coordinator puts together a game plan and you execute that process. Everything in life works that way. So if you want to be successful at anything, try to understand the process of how it gets done, because that's a big part of being successful at it. The other thing is, or I should say another thing, is attitude. It's just like perseverance. I mean, attitude fixes a lot of issues. A negative attitude has never been helpful in getting anything done. Never, ever has a negative attitude been successful in getting anything done. All it does is take away from it. Even if you have a big problem that could make you fall into negativity, it's not the right move, because the negativity is not going to help you solve the problem. The negativity will only add to the problem. So just always keep that in mind. It's one of those things, again, that you have 100% control over. No one else has control over your attitude. You have 100% jurisdiction over that. And you can make it work for you, or you can make it work against you. And a negative attitude will definitely work against you. So just always keep that in mind. Resist the urge, no matter how bad a situation may be, resist the urge to respond to it with negativity, because it won't help. It doesn't always make it worse. Most of the time it does, but 100% of the time it won't help. The other thing is, and you guys are here because you've already exercised this next thing I want to talk about, and it's a belief in yourself. Along the way, I had people tell me all the reasons why I couldn't do what I'm doing now. Even my mom, as much as I love her, as much as she loves me, at Howard's graduation, we all stood up from the School of Communications, and there was 500 of us maybe. And my mom told me later, she's like, I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, and she said, my son has these big dreams of being on TV and ESPN and the whole thing, and I'm looking at all these other kids, and like, what are the chances that he's going to be one of the ones who makes it? And what she didn't understand is, because of her example and everything that she invested in me, I was going to make it. And I knew at that point I was going to make it. But that belief has to come from deep inside you. And that belief is bolstered by the work that you put in. See, believing in yourself doesn't just happen because you just decide you're going to do it. It happens because you put in the work to earn that belief. You put in the work to be able to walk into a situation confidently. So the belief has to be there, but the belief can't be there without the work to confirm that belief. Because when you walk into a situation confident because you know you put the work in, you've already set yourself up for success. And the last thing before we get to any questions that you might have is to commit yourself now to pay it forward. You all have inherited a rich legacy from the schools you're attending. HBCUs are a small percentage of the total number of universities in the United States. But in terms of the number of black professionals that it puts out in any field you want to talk about, it's disproportionate. The success rate of professionals coming out of HBCUs it's unbelievable. I think it's one of the great stories in our society that doesn't get told enough. The pharmacists that come out of Xavier University here in New Orleans, the nurses and doctors that come out of Dillard University here in New Orleans, the engineers that come out of Southern University and North Carolina A&T, the business professionals that come out of Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. I mean, it's unbelievable, the success stories that have come out of these schools, and it goes back to one of the things I started with, the nurturing and the care that the professors and the administrators at these schools put into their students. I know from my mom's example that professors at HBCUs could be making a lot more money, have a lot more prestige at other universities. Most of them are at HBCUs because either they went to HBCUs or they have a sense of mission about HBCUs. And that sense of mission is transmitted into the care that they show their students. And that also comes back to the alumni. It's up to us to keep investing in our institutions, to keep them thriving, to make sure that the next generation that comes through your school has a better experience than even you had, because they have more resources, because they have more opportunity, because we've taken our professional success and invested into our schools. So commit to that now, even before you even begin your professional careers. Commit to investing back into your school, even if it's just going back to speak to students. If you're in a position to contribute financially, then do that. But, you know, we all wear our gear with pride. You know, they say you don't have to ask somebody if they went to Howard, because they're going to tell you before you even get around to asking them. And I think we're all like that with our schools. And so we have to invest in them to keep them thriving so that another generation gets to experience what you guys are experiencing right now. So that's what I have. I always like to leave time for questions about anything, maybe something I said or something that may be on your mind, whatever it may be. So let's go. Fire away. Don't be shy. My man in the back. Tell me who you are and where you go to school.
My name is Christian Clark. I play for Alabama State. How do you really feel about the Brian Flores situation, knowing that they did well on the back end, and they still decided to fire him?
Well, let me just say, as a person in the media, it's hard for me to really judge the coaching situation in the NFL because we have a similar problem in the media. We're underrepresented in the media, not just sports media, the news media. So the problem in the NFL is not just an NFL problem, it's an American problem. And in some ways, it's a global problem. You know, we're underrepresented just about everywhere. And there has never been a situation in our history as black people in the United States where anything was accomplished without a fight. There's never been any forward progress that has come about for black people in this country without a fight. And it just gets to a point where you have to plant your feet and say, this is not acceptable any longer. Excuses about it aren't acceptable any longer. It's time for action to fix the problem. And I believe Brian Flores is going to be a significant figure, not just in the struggle for black coaches, but in the struggle for black progress in general in the United States. It's a very courageous stand that he took. It's a very selfless stand that he took, because he may not ever get a job because of the stand that he took. But there will be other coaches that will get jobs because of the stand that he took. And I think that's more important to him. That legacy is more important to him than his present situation. And he deserves a lot of credit for that. My man, right up here. Got a question up front?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay, here we go.
I'm Lauren. I go to Langston University. So
Okay.
you think he should have just kept his mouth closed the whole time about it?
Look, I think that's a personal decision. If he had kept his mouth shut to protect the opportunity that he had to maybe get another job, it's hard to fault him if that was the choice that he made. But it's very easy to admire him because that's not the choice he made. He made the choice to bring attention to this issue and to make sure that something happens, to make sure that there is some progress. I mean, you just get to a point where you just say, we have to do something about this. And along the way, I mean, listen, I'm not comparing these two situations because they're not equal, but the lesson is the same. You guys know Rosa Parks, familiar with the name? Rosa Parks was just a woman who said, you know what, I'm not having it. I'm tired. I'm riding this bus. I'm not going to the back. I'm sitting right here. That's it. I'm done. And I'm ready to deal with whatever comes out of this because I'm done. And look at what happened. We still mention her name today and still talk about her legacy today because she made the personal commitment. She knew, hey, I'm going to get arrested. That's the least of what's going to happen to me is that I'm going to get arrested. Who knows what's going to happen when I get arrested? But she said, I'm taking a stand. And, you know, sometimes that's the only way we get progress.
Hello, my name is Kareem Bo. I'm representing Alcorn State University.
All right.
And I wanted to ask you about how you would recommend young professionals find their why to get them through those tough days.
Find
Their why, their belief.
Oh, your why. Okay. That's an excellent question because here's the thing. It's another one of those, I thought he said wife. Say, I'm engaged. I'll let you know how it turns out. But your why, okay, so if you have a why, you can deal with any how. Just want you to let that sink in for me. If you have a why, you can deal with any how. If that why is strong enough, you know? And so that's a very personal thing. You know what I mean? It's a very personal thing. Like you may have a why that is financial. You maybe didn't come from much and you want to improve your family's financial situation. You may have a why that is connected to, for me, I always knew I loved sports. Wasn't good enough at them to play them, so I said, hey, what skills do I have? Well, my writing and speaking skills were always good, so I said, hey, here's my chance to be around sports, to cover sports, to get that thrill from watching and chronicling the incredible achievements of athletes using the skills that I do have. And so that's a very personal thing, but it's essential. If you find your why, it can push you along the way. When you start questioning things, you're like, this is why I'm doing this, so I can deal with the how. So I think it's something introspective where you spend time with yourself. And again, commit these things to writing so that you can refer back to them. When times get tough, when you start to question yourself, if you have it down in writing, you can go back to it, refer to it, and get that little extra motivation to get you through those times. So to answer your question, I don't know how you arrive at your why, but it's definitely a worthwhile endeavor to do it because it can definitely serve you as you move along.
Hey, he's got one here, but Stan, something directly related to the players. Are you doing Sports Center Saturday night after the game?
Yes, I am. And you make a play, you're going to be on. We're getting the highlight on the air Saturday night. So make a play, you're going to be on Sports Center.
Good afternoon. I'm Ashbel Lamar, from the highest of Seven Hills FAMU.
See what I mean? Remember I said how we all got a little swag when we talk about our schools,
My question for you this afternoon is, you talked about how you had a tape upon graduation, giving it to all these people, but, you still had trouble finding like that opportunity or being prepared. So what could you have done differently upon graduating to be better prepared, on top of having that tape? What could you have done to be better prepared and, be ready for those opportunities?
Well, I did everything that I could with what I had. And so, like I said, rejection is just a part of the game. I mean, somebody may see you and see the promise in you and give you an opportunity. Somebody else may see you and say, I don't know if this guy's the right fit for us. I mean, a part of it is just to get back to the realities that you face. When I was sending tapes out, I usually had to check to see if there was a black news anchor or a black weatherman, because if there was, I probably wasn't getting that job, unless it was in, Detroit or New Orleans or Chicago or somewhere where it's not unusual to have two black anchors on the same desk. And, it's a little more common now, but, when I was coming up, you really didn't see it that much. And so that was just a factor that I just had to deal with. It could be a great job, and I might be, I believe, the best person for that job, but the reality was I might not get that job just because of that. So this takes me back to another story, and I can never remember where I heard this, but it's a story about a man with a hammer who's trying to knock down this big brick wall. And all he has is just a regular hammer that you hold in your hand, right? And so he's just out there knocking at this wall, because that's all he's got. He's got this hammer, and he's got to knock down this wall. And so, but every day he's out there knocking with his hammer, and he's making progress, but, it's a big wall, and all he's got is a hammer. So one day somebody comes by and says, "Hey, man, what are you doing? I see you out here every day. What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm trying to knock this wall down." And he said, "Well, why are you using that little handheld hammer?" He said, "Because that's all I have." I said, "Well, look, I got a sledgehammer in my truck. You can use this sledgehammer, and you could, it'll help you out." So guy starts using the sledgehammer. Okay. So he's making more progress, knocking down the wall, making dents in the wall. Okay. But still, he's only making so much progress. A few days later, another guy comes along. He says, "What are you doing, man?" He said, "I'm trying to knock this wall down." He said, "Well, why are you using that sledgehammer?" It's like, "You need a wrecking ball. I can get you a wrecking ball. You come in, And so the guy comes with a truck with a wrecking ball. Boom! Knocks the wall down, one swing of the wrecking ball. So you might say, well, why didn't he get the wrecking ball from the start? Well, he didn't have a wrecking ball. He had a hammer. But the fact that he was out there every day with that hammer led to the sledgehammer. And if he had decided that, all I have is this little hammer, and I'm not making any progress with this, I'm just going to give up, the guy with the sledgehammer never would have come along to help him make more progress. And if on any one of those days with the sledgehammer, he wasn't out there with the sledgehammer, the guy with the wrecking ball never would have come along. So the lesson of the story is start where you are with what you have and get going. And better tools will present themselves as it goes along. It's like going from high school football to college football to professional football. Yes, it gets harder, but you get better and stronger. But if you're not getting better and stronger, well, yeah, that next level is going to be more difficult for you. The requirement is you have to get better and stronger because it's going to get harder. So I did everything that I had within my power to do, and then I had to just deal with where that left me as I continued to try to get better, bigger and stronger, figuratively speaking, in my career. And that's really all we can do. But if you commit yourself to doing that, you'll find out things usually work out.
Good afternoon. My name is Stefan Savage from Alcorn State University. I'm also a student athlete there. My question is, what sacrifices did you make to get to where you are, and what lessons did you learn from them?
Ooh, boy. Well, I told you I'm engaged, right? Never been married because I was following my career all around the country, and I had to move every few years when I was younger. And then I was in Bristol, Connecticut for 8.5 years when I got to ESPN. And, it's Bristol, Connecticut. But then I moved to LA 9 years ago. So first of all, you're going to find situations in your professional life that are going to call for sacrifices in your personal life. You may have to live somewhere where it might not be your first choice to live, but the job is the right opportunity. You may you may have to take jobs when you're getting started where you're not making a lot of money. Like when I first got out of school, it wasn't bad because nobody was making any money. Some of my friends were in law school and business school, but like 3 or 4 years after college, when they're out of law school and they're out of business school and they're balling, and I'm still making $20,000 a year, and they're like, "Hey, man, we're going here, we're doing that." I'm like, "Oh, no, dog, I can't really afford that." those are some of the sacrifices I had to make. I mean, small market TV life is not glamorous. You know, I got a friend who who says she went to go speak at a school. She was working in Kentucky, in Lexington, Kentucky, and she went to speak at a school, and she was speaking to students, and it was the last period of the day. And, you know, kids, they see you on TV, they think, oh, you're on TV, you make a lot of money. They can't really distinguish between the person on local TV and Oprah. You're on TV, you make a lot of money. So she's speaking to these kids, and they're asking, how much money do you make? I mean, you know, and so she's just kind of glancing around a little bit. But it's the last period of the day. She had parked kind of around the corner because she was driving a hoopty. I mean, just a beat down ride. And so she hurried out, ran to her car so that the students would see her. But some of them saw her. They're like, you on TV and that's what you drive? And they all laughed at her. And she said she sat in her car and cried for like half an hour, like, oh, I need to reevaluate my life. But she went on to become a network anchor, and I had a very successful career. But along the way, that's one of the sacrifices that she had to make, you know. And again, it goes back to the why. You know, if you have the why, you can deal with the how, and that's a part of the how. If you're in the business that I'm in, is you got to grind your way up through local television. Now, it's sort of different now. I mean, you can go on YouTube and just kind of start your own thing now, and if you're talented enough and you know, your production is good enough where somebody can see, okay, they can project you onto a bigger stage, then, you know, it can happen very quickly. You know, Malika Andrews at ESPN is, I believe, 26 or 27, but, you know, she's a unicorn. She's so talented, and she's been at it for so long. I mean, she got started when she was in high school, because it's just kind of, now today you can just do it. You know, you got a camera on your phone, and you can just do it, post it on YouTube, and if it's good, people will notice. So it's a little different now, but even that requires some sacrifice, because you could be doing other things when you're putting together that broadcast to go on YouTube. So I can't tell you what the specific sacrifices in any of your lives are going to be. I can just tell you there will be some. And you have to do the calculation of, is this a sacrifice that I want to make? How does this fit into that plan that I wrote down? Where does this fit into that? And then you can evaluate it. But that goes back to, again, having that written plan down, because then you can refer to that plan and say, does this fit with where I want things to end up? Where does this fit in that plan? And that gives you some sort of a metric to evaluate it.
Good afternoon. My name is Faith Daniels, and I attend the Grambling State University, the place
All right.
where everybody is
My mom, during her career, when she left Dillard, she went to Governor State in Illinois, and then she came back, and she was vice president of academic affairs at Grambling for 7 years. She devoted her life to HBCUs.
Do you know what years that she worked there?
I was at Howard. It was toward the end of my time at Howard, so it was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Okay. Can you just ask her if she knows who Tammy Staten is? That's my mom, and she
Okay.
served as Miss Grambling during that time.
All right,
They
okay,
might
all
know
right.
each other. As a fellow journalist, my question is, how have you been able to maintain your confidence throughout the years?
Maintain my...
Confidence?
Yeah, you know, that's another great question. I can tell you're a journalist. It's a difficult thing, but it goes back to somebody just said a few minutes ago. As it gets harder, hopefully you get bigger and stronger. I mean, you know, covering the Super Bowl, covering the NBA Finals is a big deal. You know, you can't slip up. You know, you can't make mistakes. You know, it's a big stage. You have to be ready for that stage, but you prepare yourself along the way. You're not going to get that opportunity until the people you're working for feel like you're ready. And so you get yourself prepared for that kind of opportunity by doing the other things well. You know, when I worked in Norfolk, like I've always been a very serious person. I clown around and have fun and everything, but when it's time to work, it's time to work. And so I treated my sportscast in Norfolk like it was SportsCenter. Because it was SportsCenter. For me, it was all I had. That was the only show that I had. And so I figured out very early on, if I treat every show that I do like it's SportsCenter, when I get to SportsCenter, I don't have to change my approach. I'm already in that mindset because it's always been that way. And so that's what fuels your confidence. I mean, preparation fuels your confidence. If you know that you know the material, if you know that you're prepared, then, yeah, there are going to be some nerves, if it's a big stage, something you've never done before. But that preparation, that preparation is your rock. That's how you can attack it, because you know you put in the work to be ready. And so that's the best confidence builder in the world, is preparation.
All right, Stan, we're going to go ahead. I got the signal. You know what that signal looks like.
Wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
All right.
Wrap it up. But everybody, please, gratitude is another thing I'm sure Stan wanted to talk about, because gratitude goes a long way. And we're just very thankful that you came home, you spent some time with these folks. Everybody, let's give Stan Verrett a big round of applause.
Thank you guys for having me. Those of you who are playing in the game on Saturday, best of luck. I mean, give it your best. This is a marvelous opportunity. I was talking to some of the organizers, some of the people who put this event on, and they have big plans for this. And you guys will always be able to say, I was a part of the first one. I was a part of the crew that laid the groundwork for this, and you'll be able to come back here in the years to come and pour that experience back into the young people who are looking to follow in your footsteps. So congratulations for making it here. Best of luck in the future. Keep believing in yourself, keep working hard, and whether it's the NFL or anything else that you choose to do, just give it your best, and everything's going to be okay.